Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Patrick.
And I am qualified. I have been through this big book step study process with a sponsor who has a sponsor. I practice 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my ability, and I keep in contact with my higher power on a regular basis, and I pray, and I try to, and I go to meetings like this with people like you. So it's a tall order today. My anniversary date is July 9th, 1993. And I've got quite a lot of years, but back in those days, it's rare that you get a big book step study person who goes back that far. We had what we called Open AA, and I am a grateful person that big book step study formed, like other types of AA with AWOLs and stuff, because it was there when I needed it. And you would think with 32 years, what could possibly happen? But I want to qualify for a few minutes and give you some insight, and what a better person. I thought about this when Denise asked me to speak, and the topic being to restore us to sanity, there is a solution, and how crazy is all the insanity that we're all blessed to even be here today. If it doesn't matter, it matters that I have 32 years and that I take it a day at a time. What matters most is that you're here and I'm here today and we're all sober. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity, and I'm grateful today. If I can say one thing in one sentence that one of you can even connect with, then I believe I've done my job. And it really is a privilege when you do this work to come and be heard. It's like being in an announcer's office or to the radio station when that on light goes on. All of a sudden you're on, right? So about me, I grew up in a world of a lot of fear, a lot of pain, and a lot of loss. I lost my dad when I was 8 years old. I'm the youngest boy of 5. I lost, it's funny, we have 32 years and we process all of this, but what keeps me sober today is to remember the pain of where I came from and how it all unfolded. But I lived in a neighborhood where we had a first floor rent, and everybody else in the neighborhood owned their own homes. And I went to school with kids that got brand new clothes on a regular basis, and I either got something from Goodwill, because my father died, my mother had to raise 5 children, and it got tough because the marriage started to falter when I was very little. I understand from going to therapy and stuff that some things didn't affect me. However, it did affect some of my siblings. So by the time I was like 9 or 10, I had older siblings who had been incarcerated, and I was going to inner city schools. And unfortunately, for all the blessings I have for them, it was difficult for me. So, the Goodwill would show up, or the Salvation Army would show up on Thanksgiving and put a basket at the door, and that's how we got our meals. To look at me today as a recovering alcoholic and to see me for the person I am, I owe completely to this program, both Open AA, but even though a few years, mostly big book step study, which I'll address. So for me, it wasn't just a lot of loss with my immediate family. I had a brother who committed suicide at 28 to move on. I lost professional peers and wonderful people in my career that did things, but you know what? When you come from a background like this, you have no self-esteem. And I don't want to jump ahead, but I had this written down, and I wasn't sure where in my share I was going to bring it up. But this book is intentional. This book, I have just fallen in love with it in the few years that I've been in Big Book Step Study. It's intentional in the sense that it's written deliberate in a path to execute us. For people that are new in Big Book Step Study, regardless of whether you have time or not, I feel like you have such a gift that I didn't get earlier on. When you go into Open AA and you're there for a few months, you shut up, you go to meetings, you do what you're told, and you do service, you make coffee, because it's going to take a lot of time to just clear your brain of all the poison and all the thinking, and you get a sponsor, and you just hope that you can get it a day at a time. And then when you get to do all of that for a period of time, and you put it all together, then you can start to begin to grow from it. But it doesn't happen in the first few weeks. It doesn't even happen in the first few months. It takes a lot of time. This stuff we have this. The doctor's opinion about it being and the word's going to escape me. I know time is really, this is a lot to cover, so My point is that we, it says it right here, the drink problem. It doesn't say drinks. It says the drink problem. We can't even have one. I was fortunate because I, somehow or another, the one thing I had going for me was I had a brain and I excelled in my education. So I was able somehow, through all of the pain and all of the loss and all of the turmoil, to just get my homework done. And that's sort of how I camouflaged it. So by the time I turned 19 and I was in my freshman year of college, I had lost my mom just as I graduated high school. So I went off to college struggling because I was in a dorm with Parents' Weekend, and the other 6 guys, all of their parents showed up, and I had nobody. And so I went down to the counseling center just thinking I might want to talk to someone for the afternoon, and they gave me a self-evaluation test, and I was open enough to take it. And I guess if you score anywhere from 1,250 to 2,000, to the best of my recollection, they suggest you get some therapy, and I was somewhere above 11, between 11 and 13,000 points, because of all of the pain and everything that I was exposed to. So what does that do for us in AA? Well, for me, I lived it, so I dished it out, right? I lived pain, so I created pain. My whole years of my, losing my mom at 18 and having siblings incarcerated and being basically told that I'm on my own sort of put me out in the world, and with no self-esteem and making poor choices and having jobs that were just awful. What was the phrase that I used for my employment? I stayed in abusive, neglectful jobs, and it just even distorted my whole ability for my professional life. It stagnated my ability to grow professionally because I just would work for abusive, horrible companies that paid me shit, and I just had to I had to survive because I had nobody to take care of me. So I just needed a job, and I did everything. And then finally I said, well, I gotta push myself through college, so I refocused my efforts, and I worked 2 jobs, and I went to college. And so for me, the pain still existed, and I needed to fit in. So the drinking really took off when I was around 25 years old, and it just exploded. And it got to the point where I could have been one of those people incarcerated, but for some reason, when I got pulled over by the police, one thing that comes to mind is I was working one night and I got home at 3 a.m. and I was heading towards Malden, and I came through the connector and I was about a mile away from my home, and the car's swerving probably because I'm loaded. And what happens, I get pulled over and I get out and put your finger on your nose and I go through the whole thing. And the officer must have seen the shock on my face because I'm loaded, but I don't know I'm loaded. And there were times when I was blacking out. And so he must have seen the fear on my face. I must have gotten just a little sober enough for him to see it. And he looks at my license and he goes, Patrick, you live right up the street here? I was right next to the exit that I had to get off of when he caught me. And I go, yeah. And he goes, are you going to promise me that you're going to drive right home? And I said, yes. And so my higher power was really looking out for me that night. And that wasn't the only one, because I've got so much to cover and I really want to talk more about the solution, is that took me to my bottom. My family, both immediate and extended, my mom was one of 15 kids. My father was the oldest boy of 9 boys. I'm the 75th cousin of 78, almost 81st cousins. You were nobody. And we're blue collar, we're construction workers, we're fire, we're police, and I'm one of 7 cousins that actually went to college. And we grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and it was a really different world back then to be a part of all of that. And so for me, I was at a family event. It wasn't going well. I had more than I should have to drink, and on my way home, and I believe it's, I know the name of it, begins with a P, it escapes me, for Preston, Connecticut, which is right around the 395 Mohegan Sun area. I was driving home from a family event, and thank God my higher power was looking out for me, because at 75 miles an hour in a blackout, I flew off the highway and my car went right into the trees. But it banged up so much, and then I I passed out at the wheel. No police officer, nobody on the road at that time of the morning saw me go off. I woke up, saw what I had done, but I put that sucker in drive and reverse and everything, and I got myself out of that friggin' tree, and then I proceeded to drive home, only to go off the road about another mile or two up the street, and then pulling into my garage and shutting off the light and going into the house, only to hear you smell like a bar. And I'm like, I'm fine. So we go out and look in the car, and the engine's practically in my lap. And that morning, I went off to detox. That was my bottom. And so if not to have started off at the beginning, to be ashamed and have no self-esteem, and to lie because I wanted people to believe that I was someone, I would tell people, like I found my dad was from Pennsylvania, and I found at a Goodwill a Penn State shirt, and I'd wear it when I'd be out clubbing, and someone would say, oh, what's that Penn State shirt doing on you? And I said, oh, I have two brothers that went there, because I wanted people to, I was begging for attention. I just wanted someone to believe that I was a good person. And so the lies, and that's not even, we can't go into 4 and sexual conduct, but this disease just came at me with such force. And because I grew up at a time when people just socialized and drank and smoked, and because I fit into a family like that, I had no clue until the car got in front of me, right? Literally. So for me, this whole chapter is about getting past all of that. So a big part of the solution is our relationship with our higher power. I think it makes sense to a lot of you how I could really struggle with that, because how could somebody put a human being on this earth and take his father away from him, his mother away from him, make his brothers and sisters so bad, and have the world be so cruel? And how could I just even begin and I have to tell you, I went to an inner city school. It wasn't very culturally diverse. I was one of 5 children who were one was Hispanic. There were 3 of us, I guess the word I'm going to use for my generation is white. And the generation that I grew up in was colored. And I know in the business world and the way we've changed, we have to be careful of those. But in the time that I grew up, I was one of 3 white children in an all-black school. So when I was going to school, I was learning about black history, and I was learning about all of this stuff. Only in 9th grade to be switched to a small town in the suburbs who I had nothing in common with, because they were learning all about other history. And they were like, well, what do you know that for? And so for me, the blessing in all of that chaos is that I got the opportunity to not be biased of anybody. I grew up in a family where if the lawn didn't need to be cut, my mother cut it. If food had to be made, my father made it. It wasn't until I got into my career that I saw the separation of male and female, that I saw all of that, and that caused me angst. Because to me, it was, if you're a good person to do it, why would you do it? So for me, my struggle with part of this solution, the higher power, was how could somebody do all of this to me in the world, and I'm supposed to believe in them, right? How can I even begin to have a relationship with my higher power? But the fact of the matter is I get into Open AA, and I didn't know what I didn't know. But what I had going for me in that time was that I had my intelligence working for me. And because I started to get sober and I started to put time together, in part of the book, in the promises, it says you'll begin to know a life, it'll unfold before you even realize it. Before I could even begin to know that things were going to change for me, because I was sticking to my guns and working the program really hard and just meeting with my sponsor and doing things, the program started to come to my side. And I started to see positive changes in my life that would enable me to then make more positive decisions. And then the self-esteem got to build and the respect got to be found. How can you respect me if I don't respect you? I had it there. It never left. It just got it got repositioned. Because I don't know if I said at the beginning, I actually was a good kid. And then somewhere along the line, all of this just got so messed up. And so I go on, and I think so let me go to the book for a few minutes. How am I doing for time? Good?
Fine.
Okay, great. So it says here, I'm doing good. I'm almost there.
Good.
Well, it's hard when you're meeting people you've got to express your background, I feel, or just the content has no value. So for me, I've already said the drink. We've got this disease in us. We can't have a drink. We don't have the mechanism to stop. It can't shut us off. But what we do have is exists a fellowship and a friendliness. That's what we're doing today. We have the feeling is shared amongst a common peril in one element of a powerful cement which binds us. This book is intentionally written. Before this, the doctor's opinion talks about there's no other sect in life where participants and actual survivors can actually come forward and be of service and be of help, other than a true alcoholic who's trying to help a peer, providing that peer is willing. So we have a little bit of homework that we have to do before we can just step in and rescue. But there's no other sect in the world that can have a peer step in without credentials or anything and just say, I've been there and I'm willing to help. And what a community we have. I could go to any AA meeting. There's 60 of you here today. In my home group, there's got to be 50 or more and people on Zoom. I can go to Butler, Pennsylvania and walk into a meeting. There are meetings going on right now, and there are millions of people across this universe. You want to talk about a solution? That's a solution. The solution that we as a community, I have never met any of you. I was probably scared out of my pants. I won't admit it when I sat down. Fear is fear is going to be incorporated like I started with for the rest of my life. But now I have a program. Now I have a program to address it. I can forgive. I can understand. I can't go on to the other steps, but it's intentional that we begin. This is getting the bubbling up. This is sort of like, okay, we're going to get into more work, and I'm percolating this mind, because when step 3 comes along, is it ever not connected to 1 and part 2, part A and B? And isn't step 4, A, B, and C connected to step 3 and 2, 1 and 2? So there is purpose and intentional in the way all of this is delivered. A couple of things that I wanted to mention too, which I did alluding to the doctor's opinion, but over here, I think the thing that resonates most for me in this chapter is that we are all coming from different backgrounds, but every one of us, an illness of this sort, we have come to believe that in the illness of ours about us in the way that no other human sickness is. If a person has cancer and are sorry for them, and no one is angry or hurt, but not so with the alcoholic illness. For with it, there is an annihilation of all the things worth in life. And that's what it did for me. I not only had no esteem, but it just annihilated my whole past. But you know what? I look at that as a blessing. Because today, I'm not that person anymore. And today, I was fortunate enough that I was able to get on my 2 feet, make an incredible living for myself. I've done very well professionally. I actually am the only person in my family that has ever retired. I retired 2 years ago. This program gave me the opportunity to retire. To work in a profession and to pay my dues and to gain the momentum to grow to a level where I could take care of myself. That's a big deal for someone coming from poverty. So what I just want to mention from you is I'm so grateful that I'm sober. And if one of you people out there can take for a moment, value yourself and know to work it, you're worth it, then we've done our job. So I'll leave it there.